And then we open up with the Dragon, not Ricky Steamboat, but the Dragon against Smash from Demolition. On the rewatch of the network, it was interesting hearing Smash without Demolition music.
Yeah.
With the kind of creepy, generic, I don't even know how to explain the music, like Halloween-y type music.
Yeah. It was unique for me. This is the first match I turned on when I watched this live, and just seeing Smash in the ring as a singles, not even two members of a tag team in this match, just a singles wrestler was kind of odd to me because I just hadn't seen that before.
Yes, and then as you know, since it is a Ricky Steamboat match, even though they're not saying Ricky Steamboat, you're required to talk about arm drags, and there were a lot of them.
Yeah, the whole arm drag thing, I think that might have been the only reference that Steamboat got to his previous run in WWF at this point, because they were dead set on only talking about him as if he was a newcomer.
Yeah, I hated when they did that, especially with somebody like Ricky Steamboat, right? This isn't somebody that, has been fiddling around in the lower card. I mean, this is a former NWA world champion, this guy that had a nice IC run in the WWF. Like, come on. I mean, come on. And it's not like they made him into a completely overhauled gimmick. I mean, they just took his, nickname and made that his full name. And so I didn't understand this one. So when you were watching it as a kid, if you can remember, you still referred to him as Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, or did you buy in? It's like, nope, he's just the Dragon. No,
I didn't buy into all that. It was just like an enhanced version, and not a good one at that. I mean, just coming to the ring, it's like he looked like he felt awkward bringing the fire, like he was afraid not to burn anybody and stuff. And then they were trying to perfect the camera cuts of, drinking whatever he had to spit to blow the fire, and probably water afterwards. It just the whole thing was just awkward.
Yeah, and I love when he had when he goes to WCW after this, and he uses parts of the outfit, and that was always it was like Born Again before Born Again.
Right, exactly. Just no. I mean, the whole thing. I think the boots. If he came back with the new boots, maybe the Dragon boots. I mean, that was enough of a change. That's all he needed. He didn't need anything else. I mean, they could have done so much more here. But the way they were saying, Smash is the biggest opponent the Dragon has faced since arriving. It's like, what? Since arriving, not returning, but arriving, he just got what? It's just no. I don't know who they thought they were fooling, but I guess they were trying to do a reset of sorts, and nobody remembers 4 years ago.
Yeah, and a year and a half later, Carlos Colon is a youngster, so you just never know.
Yeah, I always thought that was maybe at the time when Gorilla said that, I thought, wow, Gorilla must not watch any other wrestling. It's pretty. He just must watch WWF. That's it. But obviously, I mean, he knew who he was. I think it was a little bit of a rib. More so, but it did get confusing to what these guys meant as far as kids watching, casual fans watching. You didn't really know, you didn't get the joke, or if they were in the Steamboat deal, you think they were joking because they were acting like they didn't know who he was.
Well, speaking of Gorilla, one thing he does in this match that I really love, and I thought he was one of the best of all time at this, and you don't hear it as much nowadays. Occasionally you do, but not as much as I would like it, is he calls it as he sees it from the impact of moves. So if you don't hit the move just perfectly, or maybe there's some miscommunication, it doesn't look right, he will flat out call it out. I remember on this match specifically, Smash goes up and it's like a belly to back, and it's just a really quick belly to back. He doesn't get him up, and he was dissecting, oh, he didn't hit it well. That was poor execution. He didn't get enough height on it. Like what you would do if you were watching a sport and somebody didn't achieve a move or something to the utmost levels of execution that they expect. I love that about it. It just adds that realism, and helps you get kind of engulfed and kind of just part of it as a legitimate sport. I don't know. Gorilla was always good at that.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of why everybody looks back so fondly at the commentary days of Gorilla and Jesse, or Gorilla and Bobby, whichever it may be. But always great on these shows.
Did you notice the ref had a oopsie in this one where he let the arm drop 3 times and then he didn't call the match?
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, I think Gorilla even calls it out as a kind of a little bit of an oopsie. So, his arm gets to drop 3 times, but not 4. So Steamboat he stays alive. Dude, also the high cross body from the second buckle to the outside, that was for WWF house show in 91. That was like the equivalent of, a New Jack dive off the roof in ECW.
Yeah. I mean, thinking back, it was like a Smash, just going to be an enhancement type guy, pretty much, maybe a step above for this match to get Steamboat over. But then going back, it was like, whoa, they're going some high level stuff here. And, they're not just phoning it in. I think that was one of the moves that just caught me by surprise. And I had to look it up and say, these guys are, just doing this for a house show. But then it's like, oh, wait, it did air on prime time and it was on Rampage 91. So this was viewed quite a bit back then. So maybe they knew that going in and went the extra mile. But Smash showed a lot here. I mean, I didn't really know he was capable of this kind of singles match at this time.
Yeah, his suplex looked more like a brain buster. I mean, there was some sick stuff here. And Steamboat definitely, I mean, he treated this as it was him and Savage at WrestleMania 3. I mean, he was bumping and working and doing all the stuff. I mean, for an opening match, I thought it was very solid. It got the juices flowing. There were times that were a little slow, but they went over 10 minutes, and I thought overall it was pretty good. It got Steamboat over. It was much more compelling than him beating a Frank Williams type guy in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So overall, I thought it was pretty good. Nice little appetizer. It wouldn't be match of the night by any means, but I thought it was okay.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I had me wondering if the crowd was just maybe so used to wrestling every month at a certain point, maybe every other month at this point, but maybe they just saw so much wrestling. It's like, we're not too intrigued by Ricky Steamboat against Smash. It's just, we know the score here. We know Steamboat's the guy coming in to get over. So they just didn't get too excited about it. But I mean, it also stood out that had me thinking that Ricky Steamboat really was the number 2 guy in the whole company, probably 4 years prior to this. And now the fans were just kind of like, they just really didn't care. It's just crazy how that all happened by bringing him back by this new great gimmick, supposedly. And this is all that happened.
Yeah. And then in SummerSlam, a couple months later, he's in an opening 6-man match, like just not using Steamboat to his fullest potential here.
And I believe that was his only pay-per-view match during this run. If you think back, I think that he didn't Survivor Series. He wasn't at. I think he was part of the team that he was replaced, I believe, on Duggan and Slaughter's team, I believe. I think he was originally on that team, but he left around that time. I believe I attended a house show around this time, and he was also replaced in October. So he was gone like right after SummerSlam, just nothing to this run.
Was that the house show in Reunion Arena in Dallas?
It was.
Yeah, I think I was at that show as well.
I mean, it just had me thinking if they had done different, and brought back Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, former Intercontinental Champion around this time frame, it had me thinking about what if they would have run him against Mr. Perfect at SummerSlam, here, what if they had brought him back and done the whole new Intercontinental Champion versus previous Intercontinental Champion, brought up the history, used videos and all that, and made this a real big deal. I mean, Bret Hart versus Perfect was highly memorable, but the build to that was like Bret was a new singles wrestler pretty much at the time. So he didn't have a lot of steam as a singles guy, but Steamboat and Perfect, I mean, dream match, Intercontinental title situation that could have been.
Absolutely. And though Bret Hart and Mr. Perfect was an epic clash, there's no doubt in my mind that Perfect and Steamboat would have been equally as good, if not better. Now, you do run the risk of, losing the kind of genesis of Bret Hart becoming a superstar, but maybe Steamboat does a 3 or 4 year run where he's basically back to being that number 2 guy. Who knows? I mean, the match would have been great either way.
Yeah, I mean, the story would have been great. Bret, I mean, I don't know. It's so weird to look back because the Madison Square Garden show after this, Bret was actually teaming with Anvil again against the Nasty Boys. So it was like, wait a minute, it's a month before SummerSlam. Bret's back in the tag team. We're seeing Anvil here in the high energy gear. So they were just kind of all over the place anyway with this. And, Bret moved in, but he really didn't have a lot of build to that title match in the first place. Definitely could have been held off and done something with later if they had decided to go with Steamboat.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, I just looked. In 91, he was replaced by another former IC champion, legendary wrestler who they decided to get rid of his name and make him a just full-on gimmick, and that is El Matador, Tito Santana. So fitting replacement.
One of your favorite Survivor Series matches, so I figured you'd be the go-to source on that.
Well, that was the one that match was almost my favorite Survivor Series match of all time, but Big Bully Busick was pulled out and replaced. So that one kind of made me a little upset because to have Berserker and Big Bully Busick and Skinner on the same team, like, sign me up, man.
Maybe your most controversial Survivor Series match of all time.
I know, getting rid of some of the greats. But